Hi, this is Dr. Shane Martin. I'm a chiropractic doctor and I work with the Total Health Center as a partner. And today we'll be going over homeopathy. So my objective today is to give you an overview of homeopathy, which is the second largest system of medicine in the world. I also want to help you or enable you, empower you to be able to practice homeopathy at your own home, with your family, with your children, with your friends, relatives. This is a very effective system of medicine, and it's very safe. And back in the day, many women at home would have their own homeopathic kits or their own books on how to use it. So that's part of my objective today. So we'll be going over that. And at the end, I'll be just doing a explanation over what I do with my clinic, how I treat my patients, and some tools there. At the very end, I'll have a coupon for patients for people who would like to be patients with it's a $10 off for their first visit. So I'd like to start just with the theory of disease. So I'm sure many of you have heard of the germ theory. So the germ theory, it was put forth by Koch and Pasteur. And what it entails is you have a germ or some exogenous entity that enters the body and causes disease. We call that infection or what have you. So with natural medicine, we focus on stress. The body is able to handle stress, chemical stress, emotional stress, and structural stress. The problem is when there's too much of either, too much stress in either one of these categories, that's when the body falls into dis-ease or disease. So my job is to remove stress that's chemical, emotional, as well as structural, so the body can simply heal itself. So I'll tell you a few stories about homeopathy or some success I've had in my own clinic. So oftentimes I'd have patients who come to my clinic with depression, anxiety, and the remedies have helped them very well. I've had patients come in with Bell palsy. They couldn't feel one side of their face, and after taking the right homeopathic remedy, they've been much better. Other patients have come in with allergies, food allergies, as well as just hay fever. And after we found the right remedy for them, especially with hay fever, people have cleared up within minutes. People would come in like sneezing with watery eyes, and after a few minutes, they'd be much better. Other patients would come in with eczema, or conditions of the skin or dermatitis, and I've been able to help them using homeopathy. And I had one patient with epilepsy, seizures, and she even had something inserted or surgically inserted into her body to help control the seizures, but it wasn't helpful. But after finding the right remedies for her, she was much, much better. So homeopathy I found to be extremely, extremely effective with patients. So the question is, what does homeopathy treat? So I have a list here of a lot of conditions. You have eating disorders, eczema, cystitis, asthma, anxiety, Lyme's disease, and you can just take some time and go through the list yourself, but it's very extensive, and these are just some of the more common conditions. So in reality, I believe every condition can be treated with homeopathy, maybe not in whole, but at least in part. So let's talk a little bit about homeopathy and pharmaceutical medicine. So again, as I mentioned, homeopathy is one of the second largest medical systems in the world, and it's used in mainstream medicine in the UK, Mexico, and India, and Pakistan, Brazil, Chile, and Switzerland, with great effect. Now, One of the problems, though, at least for pharmaceutical companies, is that not only is it very effective and safe, but it's very, very cheap. And so it's hard to make a lot of money selling homeopathics. However, as Rockefeller showed us, petroleum-based pharmaceuticals uh, were very effective. And the irony is that Rockefeller is the one who really pushed America towards pharmaceutical-based medicine and away from natural medicine through his millions and millions of dollars of advertisements. The irony is that he had a homeopathic doctor himself. Even during the Great Influenza, he stuck to his homeopathic doctor. So the push for pharmaceutical medicine isn't so much about health, but more about profits, as we've certainly seen over the past few years. So I'll give you a little bit of history of homeopathic medicine. It was first discovered by a medical doctor, Dr. Samuel Christian Hahnemann, in Germany. And what he found is that oftentimes a natural ingredient will actually produce the same symptoms that they're curing. So, for instance, if you have malaria, which will produce fevers and headaches and nausea and delirium, what do you take for malaria? You take quinine. And if a normal, healthy person takes quinine, what do they experience? Well, headaches, delirium, nausea, etc. So what Hyman found is that oftentimes the natural ingredients, if you take them, or medicines, if you take them, the normal person takes them, will actually cause the same symptoms that they're typically used to treat. The problem is a lot of these natural ingredients can be very toxic. Some of these active ingredients are poisonous, such as some extract from poison ivy or even snake poison. So what we found is if you take these active ingredients and you dilute them to such a degree that you couldn't even find the active ingredient in a chemistry lab, then they take on a different form. They become energetic. They're no longer biochemical, but they become energetic. And they're actually not only are they much safer, but they're much more therapeutically effective. And so the dilution factor, a comparison would be maybe a drop of the active ingredients versus maybe a Lake Michigan. That's how extraordinary the dilution factors are. And we could go into that, but we'll move on. The next principle I want to talk about is called water memory. So what happens is water actually is affected by the energy of its environment. So for instance, they've done studies on this. If you expose water to, let's say, rock and roll music, that water, if it's used to water some plants, will actually kill the plants. Whereas if you expose some water to classical music, will actually allow the plants to thrive or to grow. So we call that water memory, and there's lots of fascinating research on that. So this will just give you an idea of what the dilution looks like, the dilution process. You're taking an active ingredient, something that's natural, and you make a tincture with it. It's called a mother tincture. And then you begin diluting it. You take maybe a drop of that and put it into a pint of something else, and then you take a drop of that and put it into a pint of something else, and it goes on and on and on and on until you end up with a homeopathic remedy that's so diluted that you can no longer find the active ingredients. But what's left, though, is you might say the frequencies or the energy from the initial active ingredient. So that gives an overview, at least on the background of homeopathy. So homeopathy versus allopathy. So homeopathy means like cures like. You take you want to find a natural ingredient that will cause the same symptoms that you're trying to cure. And so far, it's been very effective. Well, whereas with allopathy, allo means you go against, and so that's where pharmaceuticals come into play. And we've already, and it's interesting because even during Heinemann's time, he found that medicine during that time caused more harm than good. As we know, pharmaceutical medicine is more profit-oriented than health-oriented. In fact, even during these last few years, the CEOs of pharmaceutical companies like Pfizer, Moderna, they became just billionaires within a year of pushing out their vaccines, which have actually turned out to kill and disable many people. And that's a whole other story. It's talking about vaccines. I'm not saying vaccines are necessarily wrong or ineffective. If you do vaccines correctly, they can be very effective. In fact, the technology or the philosophy of how vaccines are used are derived from homeopathy. So I'll talk about a little bit about arnica montana. It's a very common homeopathic remedy. Surgeons use it in their patients after a surgery. And oftentimes the swelling and reduces like 50%. The healing increases extraordinary percentage. And so we know homeopathy works. And there's a little research on knee surgeries and how it's been very effective with knee surgeries. So the clinical significance of homeopathy. So they found that homeopathy is very effective for malaria. So there's 4 types of malaria. The most dangerous kind is in Africa, and the kind that usually stays in your liver is and stays with you for the rest of your life. That's found in Asia. Anyways, they found that's very effective for malaria. During the Great Influenza, where 50 million people worldwide died, it was very effective. In fact, I believe the mortality rates, medical doctors had a mortality rate of 30% when treating people with influenza, whereas homeopathic doctors had a mortality rate of 10%. In fact, there was one doctor who treated over 10,000 patients during this time period, and he didn't lose a single patient. And then we also have COVID. So remember in India when cases of COVID were skyrocketing, when the government were able to figure out which homeopathic remedies were effective for COVID, they were able to disperse into the population. We saw the cases in COVID greatly decrease. So lastly, we're going to talk about no-sodes before we get into the practical part of homeopathy. So no-sodes are absolutely fascinating. So and this is where the idea of vaccines come from. What you do is you take a disease, you take a particle of that disease, whether it be a germ, a parasite, or a viral particle, and then you dilute it. You make a homeopathic remedy out of it, and then you can then use it to treat that specific disease. So let's say you have the common cold. You take a few strands of the cold, you dilute it, you make a homeopathic remedy, and then you can use it to treat the common cold for that year. Okay, now we're going to get into the practical part, how you can actually apply homeopathy at home. So there's 28 homeopathic remedies that every person should have at home. And there's a guide how to use them based on symptoms. What I like to do with my patients, I like to use muscle testing. I have a variety of remedies that are effective for a symptom or disease or condition. I muscle test to figure out which remedy the body will respond well to, then I administer it, and usually it's very effective. So these are some common conditions, very common conditions that you can treat yourself at home. You have sore throat, you have colds, you have fractures, you have acute UTIs, you have panic attacks, burns, toothaches, food poisoning. That's a really good one to have, especially sprains, injuries. Excuse me, nausea, vomiting. Once I had my daughter, and she just came back from Utah. She was skiing in Utah. She had pain in her eyes because of the bright sun that was reflected off the snow. So I just pulled out my homeopathic kit, found the right remedy for her, gave it to her, and she was much better. The problem is she had to keep taking it, and also bee stings. It's very effective for bee stings as well. So these are just some very common conditions that you can treat at home. So next, this is just a list of the remedies that I recommend. There's 28 remedies. All these remedies are in Latin, so you're not going to recognize them. You may recognize chamomilla, that's the chamomile flower. Belladonna, Rustox, that's actually poison ivy. You can use this to treat poison ivy after you've scrubbed off the oil itself. Ignatia, Ignatia is very effective, especially if you're dealing with grief or a sense of loss or depression. So again, if you're interested in acquiring a kit for your home as well as with instructions, send me an email. Just go to my website and send me an email, and I'll send you the information you need to acquire your own and to assemble your own homeopathic kit and how to use it at home. So that covers the homeopathic portion of this seminar, this class. So right now I'm going to go into just how I treat patients at my clinic and what you can expect. So this is a summary of the tools I use or systems of medicine I use at my clinic. I use iridology, homeopathy, of course, applied kinesiology. I can check for hormones, candida, biofilms, heavy metals, environmental toxins, food allergies, and other microorganisms such as viruses or parasites. We use Bach flower remedies, meridian therapy, or you might know it as acupuncture. So with iridology, I'll just go through everything a little bit more specifically. It's an absolutely fascinating diagnostic system. By taking pictures of the iris and analyzing the iris, I can actually see the organs of the body reflected in the iris. The nervous system, the brain, the gut, the spleen, the kidneys, etc. And I can see if there's inflammation. I can see if there's toxins in the body. I can see the condition of the gut. And based on that, I can prescribe treatments. Homeopathy, of course, we've already talked about this. It's very effective for skin conditions. In fact, there are many medical doctors who have become homeopathic doctors here in this country, here in the States, because they found that homeopathy is so effective for treating skin conditions. Next is nutrition and herbology. So at my clinic, I'm able to determine which systems of the body are weak. It might be the lungs, the spleen, the thyroid, the stomach, and I'm able to prescribe herbology, herbs or supplements, and I can using muscle testing can figure out exactly what supplements are needed, or herbs are needed, and how much. So there's no guesswork here. You don't have to buy 20 or 30 supplements just because they're prescribed for a certain condition. You can actually tell exactly what's needed. So next is applied kinesiology. Applied kinesiology is a diagnostic system that was put together by Dr. Goodhart in the 1960s. It uses muscle testing, and it's such an effective diagnostic system that he was the first chiropractic doctor who was asked to treat, Olympic patients or Olympic athletes during the 1974 Olympics. What applied kinesiology does is it combines multiple systems of medicine, osteopathy, Oriental medicine or traditional Chinese medicine, chiropractic medicine, as well as naturopathic medicine. So what we do is we use muscle testing to figure out, okay, where's the stress? Is it chemical? Is it mental? Is it structural? Where is it? Then we can also use muscle testing to figure out what will actually help these conditions. So next we have in-house testing. I look at patients' hormones. I can see if they're high or low, especially the sex hormones. And look for yeast infections. I can test for biofilms, which are these little containers that germs can hide in, and they can protect themselves from whether it be pharmaceuticals or natural treatments. So we can determine if there's biofilms, we can get rid of them. I can check for heavy metals, and test for environmental toxins and allergies, and parasites, viruses, bacteria, fungi. Parasites and fungi or mold seem to be really common these days. I keep running into that. Then I use Bach flower remedies. So what this is that flowers give off very specific frequencies. And these frequencies can be captured and placed in homeopathic vials. And these vials can then be used to treat unconscious limiting beliefs or emotional problems or issues. And what I do is I can figure out which remedies are needed, make a tincture for patients, and we found it to be very effective. See, next is meridian therapy. So I can figure out what meridians or what acupuncture meridians are congested in the body or blocked in the body. So again, the body is essentially a large battery. You have energy that flows through the body. I believe you have around 17 meridians in the body. And so I use meridian therapy to treat a lot of conditions, especially emotional conditions, such as grief or anxiety or anger. And again, it's very effective. I don't use needles. Rather, I use laser. I use tapping to clear up meridians. In fact, thousands of years ago, or even hundreds of years ago, acupuncture doctors in China, they were actually also, you may have called them chiropractors, because they would adjust the bones as well. So lastly, we have the code. So the code you can use is seminar. So if you want to have a new patient visit with me, when you just go book an appointment, when you go to check out, you can just put in the word seminar, and I'll give you a $10 discount. So I hope this was helpful. And if you have any questions, please contact me. And again, if you're interested in putting together a homeopathic kit for yourself, please contact me. I'll send you the information you need so you can put together your own clinic, your own kits. All right. Well, I wish you the best. Take care. Bye.